So we will start with the front page of the Telegraph, Josh, and the story which is creating sparks across GB News' floor.
Of the whole, hopefully the whole of this country, as well it should. NatWest boss under pressure over Farage bank scandal. So things have progressed. When Nigel Farage released to the public what was going on with the situation, the BBC, particularly Simon Jack, put out this thing basically saying that they'd been told by these sources from Coutts that he didn't have enough money, essentially was the gist of it. And that was why he'd lost his account. Like, source... It turns out the
night... You need to have £1 million.
Yeah, and all of this stuff like that, even though loads of people didn't have £1 million and all this stuff.
Who would? You'd be insane to have that much money.
Well, exactly. So it turns out that the NatWest boss, who owns Coutts, just happened to have dinner the night before with him. So...
Like, not à deux.
No, sitting next to each other at an event.
At a function. But
and then suddenly a source close to the thing. So this is...
I put you next to me, son.
Yeah, exactly. Just fed it to him. He just uncritically just put it out there, whether he knew the real information or not. Didn't do his job as a journalist. I'm not a journalist, by the way. I just read what journalists say. So she's been criticised. She should be criticised for that. BBC needs to be criticised for not taking it further. And the only sort of light at the end of the tunnel seems to be that Rishi Sunak will hopefully achieve something with this government, because they're now putting this under review. There was already a financial investigation going on, and they're going to sort of tag onto that this whole the accounts now it'll be illegal for them to close people's accounts.
Because it does seem, doesn't it, Nick, because this is like a really quite serious transgression. It's not another culture wars kind of blip. This is something pretty fundamental to a functioning democracy, that people cannot close down a bank account because you voted the wrong way. And he's not an extremist.
No, absolutely. It's absolutely shocking. And the fact that, as Josh says, that Simon Jack and other people like John Sopel, former BBC, now LBC, went along with it in such a cavalier way. It seemed very dodgy to me at the time. Pretty obvious disinformation, whether deliberate or not, by the time it reached them, as Josh says. They just went with it. Oh, we didn't have enough money. They were just gloating. John Sopel's tweet is still up about that.
I just saw it now. I just checked before we came on.
There you go. Appalling.
Yeah.
And so it's absolutely shocking. And if you look at the dossier, I know we talked about this last night. I wasn't here, so I didn't get to talk about it. The fact they called Farage a disingenuous grifter. I mean, it was the language of an FBPE Twitter account. Yeah. And the most shocking part was, to me, was when they said this is not a political decision, but one centred around inclusivity and purpose, as if that's not a sort of woke-sounding political statement, as if they're either lying about why they did this Farage, or they were so entrenched in ideology that they couldn't tell that it was OK to have other views.
But they wanted desperately to present it as if he had accidentally exposed himself, like a buffoon, like somebody who posts a picture of a screenshot of their computer and leaves tentacle porn tabs open or something.
You're just Farage.
He's obviously... And in reality, he's absolutely identified a significant problem that is like underneath the crust.
And we should thank Toby Young as well, because he did some of this work when he got debanked from PayPal. And it's just, like Josh says, the one good that could come from it is banks now may potentially lose their licences if they do this in future.
Let's hope so. We want to have a quick look at another story on the Telegraph. Bottom right, the EU calls Falklands Malvinas.
Yeah, Argentina claims diplomatic triumph over the Falklands. And this is an EU document that they put out, an agreed declaration with the EU and Latin American and Caribbean countries, where they refer to the Falklands as the Malvinas. The UK have said this is really out of order. I think it's out of order. It's not cool. It's not. And they're saying, oh, this is about respecting international law. Well, that's what it's called. It's the Falklands. 99-point-something% of the people who live in the Falklands voted to stay as part of the UK. So I think it's disgusting that they've done this.
And it's not some island that was settled, you know, and the original Argentinian population was squeezed out.
We've had it since 1833, and also just the gleeful way that the EU is like, well, you're not part of us now, so we don't have to listen to you.
Could be exactly what the Tories need, though.